What up, Chiefs Kingdom? Mondays, they're so much better after a Chiefs win as they take down the Jacksonville Jaguars 17-9 in the defensive battle that very few saw coming on Patrick Mahomes' 28th birthday. We'll break it all down today on 10 Things.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of 10 Things. I'm DJ Kissel, hanging out with Hayley Lewis. Hayley, I know it's only been a few hours since we've been out saw each other, but how was your weekend? How was the last 12 hours?
I mean, yeah, the last 12 hours since I saw you, I went home, wrote some notes, went to bed, woke up a champion. I hated that, sorry, but the Chiefs won, and so it's exciting. Much better than what we were doing, a week ago after the Chiefs lost, and then we had to wait 10 days before they could win and redeem themselves. So
that was brutal.
Life's better.
Yes, it's nice to get in like a normal week. I don't know if anybody listening or watching on YouTube, we appreciate you for hanging out with us and spending part of your Monday or Tuesday with us, but it's just weird to play the Thursday, and I think the fact that they lost and they play the way that they did, it's just cruddy to wait that long. But before we get into this, we do have to thank our sponsor of 10 Things in Mission Taco Joint. Now with 3 locations in the Kansas City area, they've got 5 over in St. Louis, but the new one in Kansas City is in Park Place out in Leawood. And talked about this before, but we don't just appreciate their support of sponsoring this show, but they're also a big sponsor of the KCSN Foundation and our Feed It Forward program. And happy to announce that we're actually doing our first delivery for Feed It Forward tomorrow, which would be Tuesday of this week. We are headed out to Hope Faith Ministries with the folks from Mission Taco Joint and providing meals and lunches for the homeless population over there. I'll be doing that once a month. Thank you to Mission Taco Joint. And make sure and remember that on Tuesdays at any of the Mission Taco Joints in Kansas City, you go in there and mention KCSN, get 10% off of your bill. But again, appreciate their support of both KCSN and the KCSN Foundation. All right, Hayley, let's get into the 10 things that are top of mind for us right now regarding the Kansas City Chiefs. And we'll start with number one. If anybody remembers this, we're getting more into the style of what the show was last year. But I like this first one because we did these a lot last year. We've done these over the years as Andy Reid just keeps moving on up. But Andy Reid, with that win against the Jags on Sunday, secured his 270th career victory, combining regular season and postseason as an NFL head coach. And that win moved Reid into a tie with Pro Football Hall of Fame coach Tom Landry. Wow, for 4th place for most combined wins in NFL history. His next win will move into sole possession of 4th place. And then it's going to be a little while before he catches George Halas with 324 wins. So if my math serves me correct, 54 wins away right now from tying George Halas. So that's going to be 3 years, right? Yeah. 18 wins.
Plausible.
All the playoffs and everything. Tuck's looking at me like my math's off. Just go undefeated for the next 3 years and he'll catch George Halas.
Plus in my degree.
But yeah, I don't think it's a surprise. And we've talked about these numbers and these streaks and these paces for a long time that Andy Reid's one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. The success that he's had, not only in Philly, but obviously here in Kansas City with the Super Bowls. Unbelievable.
It's been cool. I think the past couple of years covering this team too, and I know you've covered them closely as well, to see his name, we've been saying these things for a while, right? To see his name continue to creep up on that list, and it's really cool to see where he's at. And then there was a post-game quote that Mahomes said about Coach Reid. He's like, at the end of the day, obviously he's a great coach, but I think the person that he is what makes him so special. The way that he's able to relate to everybody in the locker room would say the same thing, and you all know that. And I think that's the best part about Coach Reid is that he is a player's coach, but he keeps command of the locker room and of his players, but at the same time encourages them to be themselves. So we love to see it, but I think the cooler thing is that everyone is a Coach Reid fan. I mean, you watch him kill the State Farm commercials, say the word nuggies. Somehow Patrick Mahomes gets to say that word broadcast, but awesome accomplishment, even better dude. That's the cool part about it.
Yeah, I think that balance, and you've been around coaching and you've been around athletics, like it doesn't matter the sport, the ability for coaches to relate to players and have the players play hard for them and respect them, even when they have tough conversations, even when he's had to release players that he's had a history with, they always seem, I shouldn't say they always, there's a couple, and then we all know who they are, but there's a couple that get upset later in their careers when they're told they're not good enough or they're too slow anymore. But in general, like Andy Reid and the respect that he commands, not only from the players that play for him or that have ever played for him, but even the coaches around the league. Like you have a lot of people. I remember being on the red carpet before the Super Bowl win in Miami and talking to Sean McDermott with the Bills, like everyone was rooting for Coach Reid.
Right.
It's crazy because, obviously beating the Bills and the rivalry that they have and they will continue to have going forward, and the connection that the networking and it's a very small world in coaching, that there's only about 4 or 5 coaching trees that you come from and how you learn things. Obviously, Andy Reid playing Doug Peterson this past weekend. He has so much respect, and that ability to be really, really good at your job and have coaches, players, executives, everybody around the league respect you the way that they do. I think that's given Kansas City and the Chiefs and a lot of the moves that are made and a lot of things that get done behind the scenes. No one's going to lie to Coach Reid. No one's going to mislead Coach Reid on anything. A lot of those games that some people might play, it's not going to happen with him. And we're lucky. I have it pinned on my Twitter profile. Said, what was the most clutch moment in Kansas City sports history? Said Clark flying to Philly.
Yeah.
When he said, we're not going to wait for Andy Reid to come here, and he's going to Arizona first. We are going to fly to Philly and do this interview with him in the airport. And Coach Reid has said multiple times, he said back then, that decisions to do that told him exactly how much Kansas City wanted him. He already respected the Hunt family for what they were doing. That decision from Clark Hunt and everybody that went with him to go and meet Andy Reid in the Philadelphia airport that day changed the trajectory of everything for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I mean, Coach Reid has been a godsend to Kansas City, but the person that he is what makes him, so special. Something that was also special. Yes. Let's talk about the Chiefs defense, right? Usually we're always talking about Patrick Mahomes getting things done. I mean, he did get things done. We'll get to that eventually, but it's the Chiefs defense that continues to shine. And they did so getting, holding the Jags, an explosive offense, to only 9 points. And we were talking about some of those key players that the Jags have that we were but expecting to see more explosive plays out of. The Chiefs defense gave the Jaguars trouble, lots of trouble. And they held the Jags to 0-3 in the red zone. Despite a 6-play drive in the red zone, the Chiefs were able to limit the Jags to just a field goal on that drive. I mean, field goals all day, baby. No touchdowns.
Yeah, if you would have told me at the end of that game that Calvin Ridley only had 2 catches for 32 yards, it would have blown my mind. I know he had the one that was dropped where he was pushed out of bounds, and they called the penalty on Snead for pushing him out. But outside of that, I think Calvin Ridley showed, even on the 2 catches he had, and I could have swore it was more, but how impressive he is. And Ben Fennell, who, if you don't follow Ben Fennell on social media, you absolutely should, but showing that they were doing doubles. This is what Ben was explaining. It's not my analysis. This is Ben's. But they were basically doubling Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley inside the red zone. Yep. They had 2 guys on both of them, and everybody else was one-on-one, which is why on the play that you saw to Zay Jones in the corner on that first touchdown pass that got pushed out of bounds from Trent McDuffie on the little over route, that angle route, that was one of those doubles, and a couple of guys are going to be left one-on-one, and that was McDuffie in the slot on Zay Jones, and McDuffie did a phenomenal job covering that and kind of running through the trash and not making contact with the defender on one of those little rub routes. Phenomenal performance overall. I think it started with a guy that we're going to talk about here in a second. Yeah. But overall, from the Chiefs defense, 23 points allowed in their first 2 games, 3 of 14 yesterday on 3rd down and 4th down combined. It was complimentary football. Obviously, it started with Chris Jones absolutely wreaking havoc and guys around and making plays. But there are a lot of players to get to, and we'll continue as we get to all 10 of the things. Start big picture and then kind of narrow down individually. But overall, I think that's the story. I mean, obviously, it's the story of the Chiefs so far through 2 weeks, is that their defense doesn't just look good. They look flat out dominant at times. And this is against a very good Lions team and a very good Jacksonville Jaguars team, has talent all over the place. And we saw that.
I think the only other thing I would want to point out is no 4th down conversions from a team where we see Doug Peterson very aggressive, usually in that type of position, and the Chiefs were able to shut it down. And I think that kills momentum, kills confidence, and they were able to roll with that throughout the day. Now, you mentioned someone the Chiefs were missing week 1, and then we see him back, and 95 looked like 95, right?
Yeah, I hope he feels good today. They talked about it on the broadcast. Yeah. I hope his body responds, because we saw how important it is to have Chris Jones on the field, and it's going to lead to an interesting conversation about training camp and how much they need to be there and all that. Not prepared to have that conversation right now, because Chris Jones maybe is just one of those guys who doesn't need it. And again, we'll see how his body bounces back. But Chris Jones showed why he was holding out for more money, why he wants to be paid like a defensive player of the year candidate. He played like it yesterday, taking down Trevor Lawrence for a sack on the 4th down play in the second quarter. Huge play. Gave Kansas City the ball and led to the first touchdown of the game. Ended the Jaguars drive in the 3rd quarter. on a batted pass. I mean, the plays that he was making weren't just that he filled up a box score or a stat sheet. They were coming at times that they absolutely needed him to make a play. And another one of the pressures, and at the time that we're recording this, the Pro Football Focus numbers have not come out. I'm really curious how many pressures he had, but he was a half a second away from having a safety after the ball was down.
Oh my gosh, I wanted that so bad. I remember that.
From Tommy Townsend, that first play back, like Chris Jones absolutely, I think it was Brandon Scherf, the right guard, just absolutely whizzed past him, and it led to an incomplete pass. But if Trevor Lawrence had hesitated or came to another read at all, he was going to be sacked in the end zone for a safety, and that celebration would have been a lot of fun to watch.
So that was Jones's 18th career multi-sack performance. And then Reid afterwards on Jones saying, listen, I mentioned this before. Over the years, he's learned to keep himself in shape. We were kind of talking about that, him not being at training camp and whatnot. But when I saw him at practice, he was moving around pretty good, and endurance seemed good. I felt comfortable that he would go out and be able to do his thing, maybe not at that level. That was a heck of a job by him. I mean, that's a big compliment from Reid. That's a lot of words.
It is. And you could tell from the way that, that some of the clips that we saw at practice, at the way in which both Kelce because more of the injury, but the way that Chris Jones was kind of welcomed from his teammates, the way they were joking with him, they were dancing on the field, that these guys really don't get into each other's business that kind of way. They want him to be there. We heard it from Kelce, we heard it from Mahomes. They want him to be there, but they're going to let that business side of things kind of play itself out before they get there. And then once he shows up, everybody was going to kind of wonder how he was going to perform. And we saw, if he plays like this, he is going to make his case for why he deserves every penny that the Chiefs give. And outside of Chris Jones, like the complimentary football and the complimentary pass rush, George Karlaftis looked really good. Felix Anudike-Uzomah looked really good. And, when Charles Omenihu, who's got 4 more games on his suspension, comes back rushing from the inside with Chris Jones, and how dominant he is on the outside. And you have Omenihu on the inside, and the stunts and the different things and the different stresses they can put on offensive lines. Chiefs defense has something special right now.
Can't see Chiefs, a defensive team.
It's crazy the defense is carrying them right now.
I think Tucker tweeted out something like that.
I think it was Justin Reid had tweeted out like, this defense has a chance to be really special, and he quote tweeted it yesterday. He's like, we're well on our way. And I think, we talked about it on this show a few weeks ago that, so many people talking about the Chiefs defense before Chris Jones was here. There weren't enough conversations being had about how many second-year players in this defense. And we're going to get to second-year players here in just a bit, but those guys could all take a step forward. Yeah. That development in players who are already here getting better sometimes gets lost when fans and us in the media and podcasting and blogging kind of forget. We always talk about who can we bring in to add on to what we already have, not realizing what you have is going to get better when you have players who are wired the right way, who are talented, you have great coaching, all of those things. I think we're starting to see those second-year players kind of step up now, and I just really teased one of the points that we have coming up, Hayley. But
stick around.
We'll get to that right after this quick break.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Welcome back to 10 Things and BJ Kissel hanging out with Hayley Lewis. Hayley, what we got for number 4?
Birthday boy.
You had a nice birthday.
Did you see the tweet? They tweeted out the Chiefs. They put out his suit and he showed up. They're like, does this count as a birthday suit? And I was like, I don't like it.
Do you know what a birthday suit is? We talked about it noon or last week.
Like, we did. I'm not too innocent to know what a birthday suit is. I was just like, no. Anyways, Patrick Mahomes, happy birthday, man. You are younger than me and so much more accomplished than me. And it makes me sad sometimes, but I'm happy for you. So
I like that we just kind of assume that, it was an off day for Patrick Mahomes in the offense. He threw for 300 yards and he had 2 touchdowns. Like, it was like, he had an off day. Like,
well, and have 1 interception. So it's like, just anyways.
And if he had just a half second more time, got a little bit more under that throw, I think he throws that ball 2 feet further. Cisco misses that. Justin Watson may have caught that for a touchdown.
He turned 28 yesterday. He gets a win on his birthday. Is 28 old or young to you? Because I haven't, like, in NFL.
I'm 40, so it's young.
I think I'm like, okay, this feels really, really, really young. Like, this kid's young. And then you look at it and you're like, I'm reading this line. 7th year quarterback Patrick Mahomes celebrating his 28th birthday. 7th year. What? He's one of the veterans on this team now? It's weird to even say it. I know it's true, but anyways, okay. So
let's get into my these are some of my favorite things. And this is courtesy of the Chiefs communication staff. They put out these game notes. And these are the things that I love because it always gives us context. And I said this last year for anybody who's listening, that was listening to the show last year. I love not normalizing the greatness that we're watching. And sometimes you need these paces, these records that are being broken to kind of give you context how special it is that we're seeing or what we're seeing. And so Patrick Mahomes with his 28th birthday and throwing for over 300 yards against the Jags on Sunday, it was his 42nd career game of throwing for at least 300 yards. That adds on to his already franchise record of 300-yard passing games with 42. Second place, friend of everyone's, Trent Green.
Heard of him.
Had a great Chiefs career from 2001 to 2006. He had 24 300-yard passing games. Patrick Mahomes has almost doubled him at 28 years old. So some of these stats, and this is nothing against Trent, it has to do with more of the history of quarterbacking in Kansas City. And sometimes it's also awesome because it shows how great Patrick Mahomes is, but it's also kind of sad sometimes because it's like, he hadn't been here that long. And this is more sad like 3 years ago when he had been a starter for 4 years. He was breaking franchise record for quarterbacks. It just was always strange to me. But when you go across the entire NFL since 2017, which is the year he was drafted, not the year that he started starting, which was 2018. So basically giving everybody a free year to try to catch up with him. Patrick Mahomes, again, 42 300-yard passing games. Second, Tom Brady with 37. Third, Matt Ryan with 35. And then Jared Goff with 31 and Kirk Cousins with 30. So he spotted everybody a year that he wasn't starting, and he still has 5 more 300-yard passing games than anybody else.
Sometimes I forget how lucky we are. And when talking with my parents who are, both from here, they're like, you don't understand how bad it was. But I was listening on the radio on my way in, and someone was talking about the fact that they went to this game and they're like, if I could just my life would be made if I could just watch Patrick Mahomes play once. And I forget we've seen him play so many times in person and I don't want to say numb to it because you'll never be numb to the stuff that he does on the field. But you just don't realize how much of a rarity, and it's like people, and I don't want to put him in, don't get mad at me for putting him in Kobe, category. But
he is at that level, let's be honest.
I mean, I remember going to one of Kobe's final games, and I was like, if I could just see Kobe play in person one time in my life, it'll be made. And that's how people think of Patrick Mahomes, and it's just insane because he's someone that we're so personable with just because of the position normal that we're in. And he is.
And you were around him, and I was around him. It's hard to explain. Well, he's just a dude. When I worked there, people were asking me oh, what's he like? I'm like, he's just a
dad.
Nice dude. He just happens to be the best football player to ever live, but you don't get that vibe from him. And there would be nobody, I think, that would blame him for having that kind of aura, that kind of
no, I love it,
ability or whatever around him. More of that, and I don't want to put this on it, but that Dion, that prime, where it's just that bad, that I'm the greatest to ever live and I can back it up so I can say whatever. And you just kind of have to stand back and be like, yeah, he's that dude. There's a few people that can say it. They back it up. Dion's one of those guys. Patrick Mahomes is at that level where he's one of those guys. He said it on his golf tournament. He was like, I just make great TV or whatever he said during the golf tournament where he's like, I just keep it close and I win it at the end. I just make it exciting for everybody. Crazy. Another one of those paces and those things.
This one's good.
It's always Dan Marino because he's always chasing Dan Marino's first few years in his career. But Patrick Mahomes is now just 25 touchdown passes shy of passing Dan Marino for the most touchdown passes in a player's first 7 seasons in the NFL. Dan Marino had 220. Patrick Mahomes right now has 196 career touchdown passes through his first 7 years. So we've got however many more games this season, and Patrick Mahomes just needs 25 touchdowns to pass, again, Dan Marino. He is now tied with Russell Wilson for the most touchdown passes in the first 7 years. Patrick Mahomes has thrown 196 touchdowns in only 82 career games. It took Russell Wilson 112 games, so 30 more games to throw the same number of touchdown passes.
You did good math there.
Thank you.
Good job.
Some of the things I'm okay at. Simple math.
Certain numbers I can't.
Is one of them.
I'm a tipper. I'm a calculator tipper kind of girl. You just know.
High school math.
Yeah. No, thank you. One of those guys that he throws a lot of touchdowns to. Look at that segue. Moving on to Mahomes and the Kelce connection. That I think we got to see that again. I mean, it looked Kelce obviously taking those first couple of little steps to get back into the swing of things. It's his first regular season game after missing week 1, but the undeniable chemistry that those two have. I mean, we get to see that they're friends off the field as well, but just the way in which Mahomes can predict the future of where Kelce will already be before Kelce even knows that he's going to be there is just the coolest thing.
Yeah, that instincts that they kind of share. And I don't know if that is just natural. I don't know if it comes from just watching so much film together
or just
time together.
Yeah.
Just some things click and some things work. And the Patrick Mahomes to Travis Kelce connection has worked better and more often than any other connection now in Chiefs franchise history.
Right.
As with that touchdown yesterday, it broke a tie that they had with Len Dawson to Otis Taylor between 1965 and 1975, where the late great Len Dawson and the late great Otis Taylor both had 46 touchdowns between them and that connection. And now that tie is broken as Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce have connected 47 times, which puts them fourth on the NFL's all-time list behind Drew Brees to Jimmy Graham, which a little surprising. You forget how good Jimmy Graham was during that stretch. That was from 2010 to 2014. And then Phillip Rivers to Antonio Gates, not surprising at all, from 2004 to 2018. They played together forever. They had 89 touchdowns. And then, again, no surprise at all, Tom Brady to Rob Gronkowski.
Right.
From 2010 to 2018, and then from 2020 to 2021 down in Tampa, they had 90 touchdowns. So a ways to go for Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce on the touchdown connection to catch Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. But they broke a tie to have the most in franchise history, which is saying something.
Yeah. Mahomes was talking about Kelce post-game, just having him back there, how much of an ease of his mind it is to have him on the field with him. He even said, he just gets other guys open. So truly a great teammate to even be out there on the field, mentioning it was just great to have him back because he not only helps himself, obviously making those types of catches and plays, but he helps everyone else.
You've said this before, and I'm going to say it very dramatically for effect, just so we all understand exactly what we're witnessing. Patrick Mahomes will go down as the greatest, most talented quarterback to ever live, and Travis Kelce has already proven to be the greatest tight end to ever live, and Andy Reid is one of the best coaches to ever live. Let's not normalize this. Let's not forget this. It does not happen. Very few fan bases at any point in their generational fandom get a stretch like we are getting right now to witness. It doesn't mean they're going to win every game. Doesn't mean they're going to win every Super Bowl. Hopefully they'll win as many as possible, but it doesn't deny the fact that you've got a guy with the greatest start to any player in NFL history in his career with Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce, who's continuing to shatter records and will continue to do so as long as he plays. We already talked about Andy Reid. Let's not normalize this. I'm going to probably say it on every show we have because we'll continue talking about things like this, but these are the things you're going to be telling your grandkids about. I got to see Patrick Mahomes in person. I got to talk to Patrick Mahomes at one point.
Yeah, cool.
Those are the kind of things that you're going to get to talk about.
It's kind of crazy to think about it. And that moves us into the next point.
More Travis Kelce.
I mean, we saw this last week, how much the Chiefs were missing Travis Kelce, and now we're just talking about how incredible he is. And you watched yesterday's game back, and it's not like there was just like it was one of those insane Kelce moments, but
we got the shit talking Kelce.
Right.
That's the one that, sorry for my language, should have warned everybody. Apologize out there.
To the children, apologize to the children.
We'll use that word, children. But seriously, we saw that side of Kelce.
Right.
I know a lot of people back in the day, they didn't like it. What gets him going? To see how bought in he is after a couple Super Bowls. He's already has a first ballot Hall of Fame, greatest to ever do a career. And this guy's getting this fired up in 120 degree field conditions down there. It's hot. He's coming back. Rayshawn Jenkins talking trash. There's a history with the Jags, especially down in Jacksonville. Last time they played down there, I was on the sideline when Miles Jack lost his mind. Patrick Mahomes was hurt. There was all kinds of things going down. I think that was either week 1 or week 2 of that season too. It was real early in the year. But it was hot like that. I love seeing that side of Kelce. I love seeing a leader get fired up like that, especially when the offense isn't playing super well. Doesn't mean they're going to snap out of it, but it shows me they care a lot, and they're not going to sit back and not let it affect them and come out in some kind of way. How frustrated they are, how fired up they are to get out there and get it done. I
mean, we love angry Kelce. We love watching him get it done. And one of the things he got done, 4 receptions in the victory. So Kelce passed Shannon Sharp, which I didn't. I mean, that's incredible. 4th most career receptions by a tight end in NFL history. You see a little list down here you got here, but Kelce is tied for the 7th fastest all-time amongst pass catchers in NFL history to reach 800 receptions in his career. It's almost becoming like when we talk about Mahomes a ton, there's always a new record he's breaking. It's almost every week he's breaking something new, and Kelce is in the same conversation. Every single week we have a new stat of a record he's broken.
Yeah, the only one that he's really kind of lower on, I believe, and I don't have the rest of them in front of us, but are the receptions, where a lot of the other stats he's up higher, but it's probably because the yards per catch and a lot of those are a lot higher. But yeah, it's the same usual suspects above him with Antonio Gates, Jason Witten, and Tony Gonzalez, and then Shannon Sharp rounding out the 5 greatest tight ends to ever play. Let's move on to another player that, of all of the storylines to come from Sunday, the one that probably isn't going to get discussed enough because of the way the defense played and that didn't score a touchdown.
Sure. But
it was the biggest storyline coming out of the game last week, and that was Kadarius Tony. We talked about it, and anybody who's ever followed Coach Reid, they were going to get the ball in his hands early. The fact that the first ball went to him, and I don't say crucial third down, but a high leverage third down early in the game, in a game that you knew was going to be close. They went right to him, and what I love, Hayley, is after that play, you saw him look over the sideline. The broadcast showed him kind of nodding. You just, players in the zone or feeling it, you could just kind of see it. And you could tell after that play that Kadarius Tony, the adrenaline like popping out of his fingertips, looks over there, nods. They go right back to him. I don't know if his look influenced the next play call, but if I'm a coach and I see a player make a player play like he did, knowing he's fired up and is eager to prove that he can be trusted with getting the ball thrown in his direction, for him to kind of have that mindset and then come back, and the next play was a little bubble screen where he made the cut back inside. And had to go flying. Those were 2 plays in a row. Love to see it.
I mean, the thing about it is feeding the ball. We knew that. We talked about that before. We knew Coach Reid was going to do that. If he ever has a kid with an issue, he's not a kid, he's a man, but ever has anyone on his team with an issue, he feeds it right back to him, gets it done. And there was one point where Tony got the ball punched out. He had to fall back on it, recover. And you saw him just right back up mentally, get right back in it and continue to play. And I think that's the thing that shows the resiliency of like, okay, don't let that one mistake define the rest of the game. You had some great receptions in the beginning of the game, continue, and he was able to capitalize on that. So I think for him, it's really just a mental thing, rebuilding that confidence, getting everything back up and flowing. And like you said, it's not going to be a storyline because it wasn't a problem.
Yep.
I think that's the best thing.
Touched the ball 4 times, had nearly 40 yards, had the receptions of 11, 17, and 13 yards. So Kadarius Tony is going to be a huge piece for the Chiefs going forward. Doesn't mean he's going to have 100 yards every week.
Right.
Got these volume numbers, but there are going to be a handful of games, a handful of plays where like Chiefs probably don't win that game without Kadarius Tony making that big play. We saw it last year again to go back, and it was bad to see because you need to point out how bad the game was last week.
Well, yeah. Let's not
how quickly people forgot in the way that people were discussing him that this was also the same guy that helped you win a Super Bowl by having the best punt return in Super Bowl history. Deserves a little bit of grace to be able to get over that and to show that he can come back and make plays. And it was great to see him get back out there and I don't say get his confidence back because guys at this level, they have their confidence. But at least prove to himself and to everyone and his teammates that he can not only have the ball, but that wasn't playing scared after that. He wasn't playing super conservative. You saw a player was fired up trying to make plays.
Yeah, and that was a fluke, not a thing that's going to be consistent.
Yeah. All right. Another thing that's consistent is our friends over at DraftKings. As we're back with another week of football, and DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping us in on the NFL action with great offers every single game day. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Throw down $5 on any of this week's epic matchups to walk away an instant winner. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Football's more fun when you're in on the action, so download the app now and sign up with code KCSN. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL with code KCSN. The crown is yours.
Take that deep breath.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is responsible. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, licensed partner Golden Nugget, Lake Charles, Louisiana, 21 or older. Age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See sportsbook.com See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
Nailed it.
I give it a 5 out of 10.
The fact that you blind read that.
Yeah, I didn't read that before. It's the fine print. It's the fine print, everybody. You get it? I'm not going to say that. It's going to come out wrong. So we appreciate it. We're going to get back to the points now. How do you feel about that, Tuck?
It was all right.
All right. Appreciate you. Tucker Franklin, our fearless producer, getting this thing going. All right. Hayley, this is going to be a longer segment because when I rewatched the game late last night, so many of the second-year players, and I already had Sky Moore, Isaiah Pacheco, and George Karlaftis listed here.
Yeah.
But going back and rewatching the game, Jalen Watson's tackle should be mentioned. Leo Chanel had
It's also his birthday, too.
phenomenal plays. Whose birthday? He and Patrick Mahomes share a birthday.
All right, cool.
I should say Patrick Mahomes shares a birthday with Jalen Watson.
I want to see how old he is. He's a youngin'. But sorry, continue.
But no, I thought, and Charles Davis talked about it on the broadcast last night, the Jalen Watson play, and we're going to get into a lot of the other guys here for a little bit longer, but that was a phenomenal play from Jalen Watson. I know he kind of illustrated how they tried to hide. I think it was Christian Kirk who kind of slid out of the backfield. They put him in motion on a tight bunch formation on their side, and he was kind of the overhang or the defensive back on that side. And they basically set up this entire play to try and get one player out of position. It was Jalen Watson, who was not out of position and did not hesitate at all in a kind of a tricky play. I'd really like to see the all 22 of that because Christian Kirk kind of slithered between the left guard and the left tackle to kind of spurt out into the flat over there, which would be very easy to get lost and not see.
He read it like a book, though.
Yeah, and Jalen Watson wasn't influenced by anything, was right where he needed to be, didn't hesitate, came up, made a great tackle, and then forced a fourth down, which forced a punt and led the Chiefs in a good situation. But again, Sky Moore, talked about Kadarius Tony having a lot of flack thrown his way after the Lions game. Those two guys combined, I think, for one reception against the Lions a week ago. And Sky Moore led the Chiefs pass catchers with 3 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. But it was his end zone catch that basically gave the Chiefs the 7-3 lead on the 9-yard pass from Patrick Mahomes' first touchdown of the year. And he had a 54-yard reception late in the fourth quarter for that play to seal things. On a play when Patrick Mahomes let go of that ball, he threw it so slowly that I thought it slipped out of his hand incorrectly, but he was just babying it because there was nobody within 25 yards of Sky Moore. They're like, I just need to complete this pass. But shout out Sky Moore stepping up, having a big game when the Chiefs needed him.
The youngins, the second-year players. He's 25, by the way. I looked it up. Jalen Watson turned 25 yesterday. So what a birthday to share with good old Patty Mahomes. But yeah, the fact that you talked about it a little bit earlier in the podcast. We forget sometimes how important it is to have these second-year players and how instead of looking outward and around the rest of the league to find people to come in and fill these voids, you have to remember that you're returning these second-year players. It's their second year in the scheme. It's their second year in this playbook. And it is that give them some time to shine. And I think we're starting to see a lot of those, guys start to step up here big. And you mentioned it, Sky Moore, you see Pacheco. Yep. That dude runs so angry. I love it.
The way that he pops up.
He's allergic to touching the field. It's like he can't touch the ground. He can't be on the ground for long because he's always just popping up and running. And I would love to see that more, being able to get that feel with Mahomes more. It was almost as if he was getting that. I keep saying the word chemistry. I'm trying to find a better word to describe that, but just the feel of how everything goes. And we're seeing him being more comfortable. And then Karlaftis, my God. The Greek freak. Sean Barber was talking about him yesterday, and he was giving him that name. And I think rightfully so now. He's starting to really earn that name coming into second year, putting the pressure on week one when they were missing, Chris Jones, and then being able to continue to do so alongside Chris Jones was really the coolest thing because now we start to see how they're going to beef up that pass rush. And we also, I know we got to talk about Leo Chanel and a few other people too. Yeah. But it just was a wonderful performance of the draft class from last year. Yeah.
And going back to Pacheco, because his 31-yard rush that went to midfield that led to the Chiefs' second touchdown to that 14-6 lead was kind of the spark that they needed in the running game offensively. And there was so much made during the broadcast and on social media about the Chiefs not running the football that when they did get the opportunity, and they ran it a few times.
I mean, second half.
That it never happened. But Isaiah Pacheco showed with that 31-yard run that when he needs to step up and make a play, he's good enough, has the athletic ability to go do it. Interesting note from the Chiefs communication staff is that his 2 longest runs of his career have both come against Jacksonville. Had a 39-yard rush in last year's AFC divisional round. They won that game against the Jags at home. But the 31-yard run yesterday against the Jags tied for the second longest rush of his career with the game last January at Las Vegas against the Raiders. But Pacheco finished with 12 carries for 70 yards.
Didn't really get going until the second half even. So that's quite a performance. I mean, able to step up when he was needed. And yeah, I know the broadcast was talking about the run game a lot too. And, from a coach's perspective, they're thinking, or I'm putting myself in their shoes, assuming, when the pass can't get it done, then you go to the run. And so when they were eventually starting that run game in the second half, seeing how he capitalizes off his opportunity, I think really is the most impressive thing about this kid.
Yeah.
He's so young, but every time he gets that ball in his hand, he is going to run as hard. Even when the whistle blows it dead, he's still running. You see his little legs under there.
It's funny.
Like the road runner that won't stop.
It's a bigger discussion for probably like off season or something, just as fandom, because we all do it. But it is funny how we all complain about the play calling. Like, what are we doing? Do we not know what we're doing?
I know.
At the same breath that we're talking to Andy Reid, one of the greatest coaches ever.
Yeah.
We know play calling. Like we all do it. Like, what are you doing? And then you sit back and like, you know what? He probably knows.
Yeah, because look, it worked out. So,
and the reason why he's calling certain plays, that if you were going to have like a debate with him, like you got the opportunity to be like, why are you running the ball? Whatever reason he gave would be so far above your head football-wise that it's not as simple as just run the football all the time. Understand that. I think everybody does. That doesn't mean that we all don't get caught up, myself included.
Sure.
Saying, what are we doing? The only thing I'll agree with is that we will never do a quarterback sneak. I'm not on that train. That little inside handoff that we used to, the Anthony Sherman play, and Michael Burton play became, I think it was Isaiah Pacheco ran that play on the 4th and short or 3rd and short, whatever it was. But his little open up inside trap, whatever that's called, Tucker, what do you call that?
It's a different formation. They didn't have,
He's offset.
He's an offset, but they didn't have a fullback there. And it was just kind of like it was like a gap power kind of inside ISO maybe.
It's like he turns and spins that way to give the offensive line just a little bit more time.
Yeah.
But the counters off of that, there's a counter pitch where they fake that and then flip it to the outside as everybody crashes. We've seen that a few different times. And I know we saw that Buffalo game because I'll never forget the 4th and 1 at Buffalo back in like 2014 where they pitched it to Jamal and he ran for like 30 yards at the end of that game. But yeah, every time they light up in that formation, it's like, oh, here comes the little inside whatever. It's like the sprint draw with Matt Castle and Jamal back in the day. It's the most frustrating play ever. If anyone's listening that remembers that era of footballs, then I saw somebody ran it yesterday. I think it was the Ravens or someone. I'm like, that play should be outlawed. So the quarterback's in shotgun. They hike it to him, and then he runs over to the running back who doesn't move, and he hands him the ball. And it's like
the Ravens did that yesterday?
The Ravens or somebody. I was watching a highlight of a play, and I saw it, and it gained like 12 yards. I'm like, that's 12 more yards than I ever saw that play gain. Or the Chiefs drove me crazy. But other second-year players, let's talk about Leo Chanel.
Yeah.
Leo Chanel, if you go back, there's a handful of plays, and they're not like going to end up on his highlight reel, but there were multiple plays that demonstrated Leo Chanel's ability and that the game is coming to him. And not that it didn't before, but when you see a young player that doesn't have a ton of experience, not like he played a ton compared to a lot of the other second-year players.
Sure.
The Trent McDuffies, the George Karlaftis, who started and then played all the games throughout the course of the season. But Leo Chanel, and the one that I know they mentioned on the broadcast where he strings it out and he sprints out and runs the guy out of bounds, showing some athleticism, some speed to get out there. Then there was the throwback play where
that's where I remember it.
The instincts and the athleticism to see that, recognize the play, and know what his responsibilities are, I'm assuming, to go back and make that tackle. But then if you go back, and anybody's listening, if you got Game Pass or got a game saved, go back, watch his ability to take on the Brandon Scherf, the guard. It was the first play in the red zone following Richie James' muffed punt. It was a 3-yard run by Travis Etienne, but Leo Chanel comes unblocked off the edge and guard pulling right in his face. They make contact in the backfield. I'm not going to say that it was a stonewall, but for a player that's giving up considerable amount of weight and size to make contact with him and then come off of that and then helps make the tackle. So he makes contact with this offensive lineman, stonewalls him in the backfield, and then has the awareness to still go locate the ball carrier, go after his legs, make the tackle. Like, it's one thing to be able to do physically one of those things, but to do both of those things combined with the ability out in space to make the play and the recognition on the throwback.
Right.
And chasing the guy out of bounds. Those were 3 different plays that showed 3 different skill sets that are all different, that all show this guy is ready for his snaps. He is not just a physical crazy man running around with death row on his arm, just a dude making plays, like a wedge buster type where he's just physically beating people up, but understanding the game, and it's not too fast for him. And it's awesome to see.
Yeah, I think the thing that we've seen with him is, I mean, we see his athletic ability, and that's something that they loved about him in the draft and why they selected him. And we also all remember the parade video where he completely just does a body, or what's it called, a muscle
most athletic play we've seen from him.
Yeah, and just pulls himself up onto a double-decker bus.
Yeah.
But the thing that we saw yesterday was that his football IQ is now evening out with his athletic ability. And that's exceptional. And that's what you want in a linebacker. And that's what we're continuing to see in that linebacker core, is that they have not only these physical, elite athletic players, we're starting to see that the football IQ, I mean, you see it with Nick Bolton, you see it with Drew Tranquil, like we're seeing it many times out of Willie Gay as well, but he's being superior with that IQ. And I think that's something that's going to translate into being played more, but also utilizing himself in big plays like that.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs linebacker group and what we've seen from Drew Tranquil, what we know we have in Nick Bolton, Willie Gay has shown flashes of what he can do. Like the Chiefs linebacker crew, they got it's good group now.
Looks good.
The way they're playing. And we've talked about all the second year. We talked about Josh Williams a little bit last week and what he's been doing. And then Brian Cook, we'd be talking about an interception that he had, but he got tackled by the wide receiver in a situation that the broadcast didn't talk one word about offensive pass interference. And I thought I was taking crazy pills looking around being like, that's offensive pass interference, right? Like, why is this not even being like discussed as a possibility to what we just witnessed? That one doesn't make sense to me. I hope that play circulates the NFL like the Jawan Taylor stuff does. And we'll get to that here in 1 second. Before we go to number 9 here, we've got 2 left here on 10 things. But Felix Anudike-Uzomah combined with Chris Jones for a 2-yard sack of Jacksonville quarterback Trevor Lawrence to notch his first career quarterback takedown. So impressive for FAU to get that first sack of his career. And he had some pressures in the week 1 game against Detroit.
That's what I was saying. He looked good week 1, and then we see him continue to build upon it in week 2. Sorry for your Cats, man. That was a brutal loss to the Mizzou Tigers. I'm sure he's upset about that, but can't be upset about his performance on the field. He's continued. He's not a Mizzou fan. I don't even want to bring it in. Sorry. I brought it up.
I'm not happy that they lost, but I'm not going to pretend to be like super upset. I'm a K-State fan. I follow it. I've watched my son's football game was at the same time. So I was in the stands kind of watching, make sure he wasn't out there and getting a piece of both. But I know how much I know how much it meant to Tucker for K-State to win that game. He's probably upset that he didn't go. Are you upset that you didn't go to that one since you went to the game in Manhattan?
I can bring it back to Felix. My bad, man.
A little bit, but
I kind of agree with some people that I saw on social media talking about this, people complaining about like storming the field. I'm pro storming the field. I don't care if you're storming the field like in Manhattan and you're the road team after like a win against the right team. Like, storm the field every time. Like, life's short. Go have some fun.
Let the kids have fun. Anyways, the kid, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, had a great time and he did a great job. And the potential for him is looking really good right now. So that's a rookie that all eyes should be on, as no one really saw that one coming in the draft, and hopefully continues to capitalize because he's a really good asset for this defense.
All right, now we're coming to the last, number 10. Saved the one, I'll say negative things. The offense was pretty sloppy again at times. We expect more.
The most negative, though.
But this is the most negative thing. The offensive line penalties, the Jawan Taylor stuff that they highlighted on the broadcast, there's talked about all week. We knew they would be paying more attention to it. And for all of the snaps, and this is the one thing that's annoying about this, for all of the highlights and clips that were shown last week where Jawan Taylor was moving at the same time the ball was snapped, that was not the case on a couple of the plays against the Jags on Sunday. He was moving early. So it's not apples to apples of he's been doing this the whole time. No, against the Lions, and Duke Manyweather put it out, you can see the ball moving at the same time. He just happens to be timing it perfectly. That wasn't the case against the Jags, at least on a couple of them where he was leaving early.
But he had a target on his back, though.
It's going to be a thing. And Mitch Schwartz put out a video last night, and I kind of thought about it, but obviously he's played the position, so he would know that you don't want it to get in your head as far as where your stance is, because it's an angles thing. He's trying to get as much depth as possible to set his feet and be ready, especially against a speed rusher and a guy with the kind of ability that Josh Allen has to be set up for him. But offensive line, 5 penalties. Briefly benched. Which
I thought was odd. That usually doesn't happen. And even Mitch Schwartz was someone who pointed that out on his Twitter account, was I've never seen something like that before. But Coach Reid kind of talked about it after the game, saying why they benched him briefly. And it was basically, took him out for a couple of plays, just step back. This is home. Just step back and let's get you back out there. He had some big blocks down later in the game. He did a nice job finishing. Basically, they said they have all the confidence in the world in him. I mean, that's a quote we hear all the time, but it just seemed like he wanted to just get him mentally reset, go back out there. Collecting 5 penalties, though, 2 false starts, 1 illegal formation, and back-to-back holds. How does that not get in your head? I mean, even as a veteran offensive lineman, that's going to get in your head. So it sucks, because this is a guy who joins the Chiefs in the offseason for $80 million and then cost the Chiefs. I mean, that's a lot of penalties to cost the Chiefs. The Chiefs had 12 in total today, 94 yards total. 3 turnovers, 1 interception, 2 fumbles. I mean, it wasn't pretty, but they got it done. And I think what they addressed going into week 3, wow, I had to think about it, what we're doing right now, but it's just practice. They just have, I mean, that's going to be Andy Heck's job the whole week, is just resetting, realigning, and how do we do this legally to where it's not going to be called every single time, even if he is doing it legally.
Yeah. If you would look at the box score outside of obviously like points and touchdowns, let's not be smart asses here. But if you would look at some of the key stats, I used to keep track of these. I call them the 4 core stats, that if you were better than your opponent in 3 of the 4 categories, you won the game like 95% of the time. Like, I tracked this for the Chiefs under Andy Reid starting in 2013. I did it all the way through like 2017. But it was third down efficiency, penalties, turnovers, and red zone. If you were better than your opponent on third down, red zone conversions, and not having as many penalties, it didn't matter which 3 it was, but if you were better in 3 of those categories, you were going to beat your opponent. Well, then every once in a while there's an outlier, like we saw from the Chiefs, where it was defensively they were dominant, because again, they lose the turnover battle 3-1. Chiefs, you mentioned it, 12 penalties for 94 yards. The Jaguars had 2 penalties for 10 yards. Gave up 84 yards in penalties, turned it over plus 2, because the Jags had their 1 turnover. You gave them a bunch of free yards. You gave them 2 extra possessions. And outside of third down, where the Chiefs offense wasn't very good either, but neither were the Jags, because the Chiefs defense was really good. We talked about earlier. Holding the Jags to 3 of 12 on third down, 0 for 2 on fourth down. But most importantly, and the reason they won this game, was 0 for 3 in the red zone.
Yeah.
That is the reason that the Chiefs won this football game, is the way the defense stepped up and played in the red zone. And if we're being honest about it, talk about a game of inches. 3 touchdowns from the Jags were not counted because of
made him 3
millimeters and inches of these guys and their feet not being in bounds. Calvin Ridley at the end of the game, Zay Jones earlier in the game. It really was that close. And shout out to Spags and the guys for getting it done inside the red zone, because above anything else, this game was decided by the Chiefs defense standing tall in the red zone.
So how do they, I guess my biggest question, and I'm throwing it to you, but how do they adjust going into week 3 when the issues had nothing to do with the defense? I mean, obviously they're going to address some things on defense, make some adjustments, little tweaks here and there. How do you, what is your focus? If you're Coach Reid going into this one, is your focus simply tailor receivers, getting that offense flowing more? Or does that kind of make sense? I'm wandering around the question, but that's what I'm really trying to get out, is what's the adjustment going into next week?
Yeah, I think, again, it's getting the young receivers to come along. I think there's going to be a lot of questions coming off the win. Again, Justin Ross getting less than 10 snaps in this game. A lot of people are going to question it. I'm not questioning, because he's a young player, hadn't played yet. And Andy Reid's offense is not easy for these young players to figure out. So I think a lot of the issues, or the, I don't say sloppiness, or just not seeing what we've come to expect from a Patrick Mahomes-led offense for the Chiefs, has everything to do with so many new faces on that side of the ball. It's just going to take a little bit to go out there and play at that speed against professionals who are game planning against you. It's a different speed. It's a different level to understanding for these receivers. It's not like training camp where you're going against the same guys and they're giving certain looks. You're going against guys that are game planning against you. And young receivers have to get on the same page. Donovan Smith, Jawan Taylor, we've said before, going back to the offseason, they were as happy with these two set of tackles that they've had during Andy Reid's tenure in Kansas City. That's been talked about. It's a big statement considering what Eric Fisher and Mitch Schwartz were earlier in his career. So are they talented? Yes. Are they going to get there? Yes. Is it going to take some time? Yes. Did we see a little bit of the example of the margin of error of the talent and the ability between the Chiefs and the Jags in that game? Because, again, 3 turnovers, 94 yards on penalties against a good team on the road, that if you make a little bit more plays or you're tweaked just a little bit there, you win that game. And on the flip side for the Jags, 6-8 inches on the other side, they may have won that game. So it's what happens when you go on the road against a good team. But yeah, I think for me, offensively, it's going to take, and a lot of it, we're just going to see them play better. We might not know all the reasons why all of a sudden it looks less sloppy. And it's because the young receivers are where they're supposed to be. The tackles aren't getting all the penalties and those things. But yeah.
We'll see if things tighten up in week 3. Bears in town.
This is another, we'll talk about margin of error games. Like, margin of error is bigger than normal. Let's be honest. The Bears are not very good. They're 0-2 coming into this one after dropping, I believe, to the Bucs 27-17 last week. So this is a team and a quarterback that is struggling. He's a very mobile quarterback. Justin Fields can go make plays. But if the Chiefs play like we know they're capable of playing, this game should not be close. Bears defense did get significantly better this offseason. They added some new pieces. They definitely got guys like Tre'Davious White that can go and make plays, but this is a get-right game for the Chiefs offense, I believe.
That's exactly, I feel the same way. This is a get it together, get the momentum rolling, get a clean win, play fundamentally sound football.
Love to hear it. And love the fact that all of you hung with us for this show and spent part of your Monday or Tuesday with us whenever you're listening. And don't forget the guys from Only Weird Games, Nate, Seth, and Josh will be going live at 4:30 on the Chiefs YouTube and X accounts. And then the KC Lab will be going live at 8 o'clock tonight as well.
Just that day.
A lot of good content coming to you later today. We appreciate you for spending part of your day with us. Hope you learned something. Let us know in the comments what you liked about the show and what your favorite piece of information that you learned on the show is, or something that may have surprised you. We appreciate all of you. Have a great day. Chiefs Kingdom. We'll see you later.